All right, guys. So I am here with one of my favorite coaches and good friends, Kevin Garlington. We go way back. I remember we were kind of just like growing together, and we both reached out and talked to each other. And I always liked you since then, and been fun to watch your progress as a coach and as a family man and everything. So Kevin, I'm just so happy that you're here with us today.
No, I'm super excited. Actually, you say that it's like I remember actually Pete reached out. Pete's the man that reaches out and like connects everybody. But you reached out. I remember us doing our first kind of collab, and since then it's just watching as we've both just grown. It's
Hmm.
been awesome. It's just been growing and watching like students grow, students get better. It's just a cool journey. Kind of like looking back, that was oh my god, that was like
It was
almost
a
like
long
I
time
want to say
ago. It's
over
like
10 years ago.
over 10 years ago.
I
Hey,
want to say
speaking of
yeah.
growing, this guy right here has gotten bumped up, and he is always in the tennis,
Congrats.
works super hard. So great job, Mark. And then we also have Tom, Dr. Tom, who just sent me a video just the other day of him out there working on his slice serve. So we have the obsessed students with us. And Kevin, what we're going to talk about today is goal setting for 2026, being a better player in
Yeah.
2026. So before we get into the list for them, I would like to know what are some of your goals as a tennis
Ooh.
coach for 2026?
My goals as a tennis coach. So, yeah, that's a good one.
Did I
As a
stump
tennis,
you? I didn't
you,
mean to
you,
stump you.
I mean, I got a lot of goals, so I'm trying to like narrow it down. Honestly, as a tennis coach, I personally working on in 2025 and 2026 is getting way more knowledgeable about like anatomy, how the body works, and learning how to communicate that in an easier way. So I'm much more adept at understanding exactly how to help people in a much quicker way. Working on now have been it's been super fun because we've been working on how to update their strokes in the quickest way possible, and it's helped me a lot as a coach to understand what the body's trying to do to make it as quick and seamless as possible. And so that's been one of my goals. I don't know if that's kind of where you're going. Um,
Yeah.
and as a coach, just online, I want to definitely 2026 do more stuff. I'm doing a new launch of a program that I think is really, really awesome because basically I've been doing a lot of private coaching over the last year, and all the information I got from that program, and I'm really focused on how much is helping people. And so I'll talk about a little bit of that now, but mainly it's just like helping more people improve. That's my goal. It's like I literally just the not rant, but I had a student last night that we were on a call, and I watched him play like 3 games, and I was just blown away of how he was like constructing points from where we set goals 3 months ago, and he was like, I know, I had this epiphany, and I was like, yeah, and so that just gets me excited. So I want to create that for more people.
That's great. That's great. Guys, as you come on in and are watching this, certainly put down your goals. I think it'd be good. I think it's good to share and state goals with people to kind of put it out there, hold yourself accountable. Certainly, if you have any questions about how to reach those goals or anything that you see as a potential roadblock to achieving them, put that down too, and we'll try and help you as we go through this. So, we've been on now for a couple minutes. I see people are still coming in, but we're gonna start uh, because I like to reward people who show up on time. I'm all about showing up on time, so we're not gonna waste anybody's time here today. So we're gonna get right into it. So what we're going through today is the top 10 list to be a better player in 2026, and we're just gonna go back and forth and ping pong. So the first one I have is to start making goals today. A lot of people, you have the New Year's resolution. Of course, you're still kind of formulating what you're doing in the new year. You do get more focused after the holidays. So, I mean, that's going to be part of it too. But I think that sometimes what happens is people think about what their goals are in the new year, and then they still are busy. And then by the time they really get focused on what they want to do, rather than hit the ground running, all of a sudden they're into their season and they're kind of like too
Oh,
afraid to make a change in their game, and then they end up kind of with exactly the same tools, and they feel kind of like blindsided by the season and not playing and doing the things they want to do on the court. So, for example, with my even business goals to help people become a better tennis player, I actually did them last month. So, and I kind of had a mind map with it, where I had ChatGPT draw me out a really cool like vision board. And I think the more you do stuff like that, that when the new year comes, you're ready to attack. So that's, I think you guys should put on your list. Kevin, how about you?
Yeah, no, I think I'm going to kind of tag on with the same one because I think first sitting down and figuring out early, like, what is it that I need to improve? Because I think a lot of players have the great intention of making good goals, and then it just goes overwhelming. Like sometimes when I sit down and make goals, I'm like, I want to do this, and I want to do that, I want to do this, and then you got to really think about, I think, what's going to move the needle. That's going to be one of my things a little bit later, but it's like I use this, if people are familiar with the idea of 80-20, it's called, I think, the Pareto principle, which is that 80% of your results come generally from 20% of the things you're going to do. And so with that being, when you're sitting down thinking about what's going to move the needle, you want to think about strategically, like, what are the things that I do that win me 80% of my points? And I think that's so important because it's like a lot of times when I work with clients and they tell me, well, I need to improve this and this and this, I'm like, yeah, you could spend a lot of time improving that, but if you really focused on this, that would really move the needle. And I think when we sit down, we have usually, I think, a favorite list. Like generally, I want to hit a forehand with more straight arm or bent arm, like Alcaraz or Sinner, and blah blah blah. But it's not like, how is this going to move the needle in my game? And so,
Yeah.
just like Pete's talking about, it's like setting down goals, but then making sure you're choosing the right goals that's going to move the needle. Because so many times I work with players and they come to me and they're like, I want to work on this. I'm like, okay, why are we working on this? Well, I feel like this shot will really, like, I hear it all the time. I need to work on a drop shot because that's going to improve like my ability to do something. And I'm like, okay, so tell me about like why do you need to work on a drop shot? And when we go through the situation, it's like, well, you hit the ball short. That's why they're dropping it. If we just hit the ball deeper, that makes it harder for them to drop shot. And so
Hmm.
that changes what the focus should be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's good. So my next goal is I see we're the same kind of mindset. So I think Kevin and I are going to kind of be saying a lot of the similar goals, because so it kind of lets you know that this is what you really need to focus on, because this is what two coaches who've been around the game for a long time feel is most important. But I have making a list of the strengths and weaknesses, but I really like the way Jorge Capistani kind of then narrows that down. So I'm stealing this one from Jorge, where he talks about what's deployable in your game today versus something that's not deployable. It's not, and by deployable, he means what's match ready to use. It holds up in a match. You're able to execute even when you're a little nervous. It definitely wins you points versus, like Kevin was saying, the things that you really want to have, but if you use it a lot in matches, you're probably going to end up giving away so many points you don't really trust and believe in it. And what he also talks about is looking at your strokes and your opponent's strokes. So let's just focus on you since it's your goals, and putting a USTA rating on it. Like he says, like you can have a 3-5 player and they've got maybe like a 4-0 forehand, but then their second serve is like a 3-0, and you just go down the list. Their forehand volley is a 3-5. Their backhand volley is, a 2-5, and you just go and you really kind of figure out, okay, dissect your game, and then figure out, okay, what strength can I then maybe bump up another level because I'm pretty close, and that gets me even more of a weapon on a court. And then what is maybe one of my lower rated shots that I have to hit a lot in a match, right? There are certain shots that you might have a lower rating at, but you don't get forced in that situation that much. Maybe you play more doubles than singles, so you're able to kind of hide that weakness. But then there's other weaknesses you might have where like, holy cow, like this is a weakness, and I've got to hit this shot like 20, 30 times in a match. And we know what Federer talked about, the 54% is how many points he won to become one of the greatest players of all time. So that definitely can keep having you lose matches like 6-4, 6-3, where if you're able to get that up another level in your what you would consider your USDA rating, that level, now all of a sudden just little changes like that, and that's how you win at your level. And then at the end of the year, the rating board decides to move you up another level lots of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. It's good. So yeah, we're on the same page. So the way I look at it is very similar, and it'll tie into another one I'll talk about a little bit in a little bit, which is I call it your keystone stroke. And so on a lot of ancient ruins, they have the pillars where it's like oval and it's a keystone stroke or stone up there. If you pull that stone out, everything else crumbles. And so I look at it from the standpoint is what's that 20% which is in my game that's I'm going to build my game around. And so a lot of times, I mean, most players, I think, and it depends if you're playing singles or doubles, you're probably going to build your game around your forehand. I would say 80 to 90% of people have a better forehand than backhand. You have the people that still have better backhands, but still you look at Djokovic, who has a great backhand, but he's learned to build his game around his forehand. And so with that, whether you're playing singles or double, find that stroke that you can build things around. And I think that's super important because then it gives you an idea and you can take an inventory of that stroke. And what I look at when I look at a stroke, whether it be not so much the rating, is what I call shot quality of the stroke. And so there's like 5 elements I think of shot quality, which is the placement, the height, the depth, the spin, and the power. And most of the time, people are trying to work on the power. Everybody wants the power, but I was hitting with a college guy who's coming in. He's like a 12.5, almost 13 UTR. And it was so interesting that he's just clocking the ball and I'm getting the ball back deep. And he's like, man, I'm having trouble. It's like, because your depth isn't there. He's so focused on that thing. And so we focused on the shot quality, which bumped up everything else. And so if we think about what's my keystone stroke and how to build my game around that, then we go back through kind of the same idea and look at what's the shot quality of each one of those strokes. And I'll tie it into another thing in the future. But I think when we focus and we narrow our focus and really dive deep into that important stroke, it really lifts everything because you're building your entire game around it. So for me, it's like my forehand. And a quick story, I spent a lot of time working on my backhand and my backhand got better. And I went and played this guy who just finished out of college and we were going back and forth. He'd win like probably 2 or 3 and I'd win 1. I was like ticked. And so I was like, man, I got to improve my backhand. And then I improved my backhand and I still lost one of the games. So I was like, what's going on? Because I stopped using my stroke that I built my game around. When I went back to using my stroke, but still having the better backhand and built my game around, it was so much better. And so I think when we're thinking about what's that thing, it's like you want to think about what's that thing, what's the quality of it, and how can I start building my game around it, whether you play singles or doubles. So I'm going to leave it there to give myself room to bring in the next thing. But I think we're talking about the same thing, just 2 different perspectives on it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Before I go into my next one, you mentioned Djokovic, and I want your opinion on what you think it might be. So Djokovic put out a picture with him working out in the gym. I don't know if you saw this. And he talked about that he is rebuilding his body. So, number one, I just want to point out to everybody that it's so amazing the way the best players who have figured out how to master their game, when they're on the tour, they never stop trying to change things or go back to the drawing board. And Djokovic, one of the things that he has admittedly said is, yeah, I get tired at the end of these tournaments. Yeah, I'm going into the end of these tournaments hurt lots of times. So when you guys keep hounding me, do I believe that I can beat Sinner and Alcaraz? He's starting to say, maybe I can't at the end of a tournament. So then all of a sudden there's this post. He kind of, it looks so cool. I don't know if you've seen this where it's a picture.
I haven't seen it, but we're going to check it out.
And he's talking about rebuilding his body. So I was kind of curious about that because I'm like, this guy is notorious for being in amazing shape, super flexible. What do you think he's trying to do? If you were to guess, what do you think he's actually trying to rebuild to do better on the court in 2026?
So I want to talk about 2 things because I think you brought up something under that I think is probably more that I should have started with, which is my number one thing. Now I'm changing it midstream is mindset.
Mm.
Before we even start about the goal, it's mindset. When you look at the best players like a Djokovic, like a Sinner, like an Alcaraz, these new guys, they are constantly tweaking, fixing, adjusting. You look at the difference between Alcaraz and Sinner's serves, what they've done. Djokovic, and so when we think about the goals, they're thinking long term, but they're always thinking no matter how good they are, they can get better. And I think that would be my number one goal. Now going back, if we're going to talk about how you're going to get better in 2026, but it's not even 2026. It's a lifelong journey. And if you have that mentality, you will arrive where you want to. And I think Djokovic and those guys, they're learning from each other. There's like, that's how you have to be at the top. You have to be willing to change. When I think about what he can be saying is his body's resilience. I think if you say, hey, look, Djokovic, you got to play center one day and you get 3 days break and you got to play Alcaraz, his body can maybe do that. But the back over a long period of time is brutal, especially as you get older. And so I imagine that there's some ability that he's working on to probably work on his ability to recover quicker. Because, as far as like him being fast and covering the court, I still think he can do that. It's the longevity of how his body recovers. And so, his explosiveness and stuff like that, it's already really, really good. Could he get it better? Probably. But I think the biggest thing he has to figure out is how can I get my body to recover quicker? And I don't know if you've heard a lot about like the stuff he does. He's very, I think, very experimental. It's not the word I'm looking for, but very like, I will try whatever it takes between very different breath works he does, where you see him doing kind of these different moves. And you're like, what's he doing? It's actually breath work that he's learning. I saw an interview where the guy was like, he's doing these specific moves to open up his lungs. He had a engineer create a magnetic little thing that he puts behind his back on plane rides. He is so open to anything that can get him better, and he's willing to try it to increase that longevity and his ability to get to the next level. So I think for me, looking at him, it's that recovery. Because I think and we saw it, I think at the Olympics, you're like, man, could he beat Alcaraz? And he did, but it's like, I think the Olympic setup is maybe different from a Grand Slam setup where you got to play so many matches. And, 6 matches in, that's tough to like say, I'm going to play my best tennis now. My body, mentally I could, but my body's not going to help me.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if there's a noticeable physical difference in his appearance. I'm very curious to see what it is, and I wonder if it will either just come out or we'll talk about it, or if he's going to keep it a secret. And if it works, I'm so curious. But I thought that post was amazing. Okay, I'm going to go into my next one, and I'm telling you guys, if you can learn to do this, this might be the biggest difference you notice as a player on the court. And I say, if you can improve your boxer instincts, and I'm going to suggest you do it with simulated play, and I'll explain more of that in a second. But first, I want to explain boxer instincts and why. When I run camps, and especially if it's a doubles camp, you go around and it sounds like a broken record of what everybody wants to improve. I want to be in the right spot. I feel like my court position needs to be improved. I want to just feel more comfortable on the court. They basically want to feel like they're playing more in the rhythm of the match, and that how the point goes, that they're just in the right spot at the right time and able to hit their shots and win points. And as I watch the majority of club players, they are always trying to react to the opponent about to hit the ball. And so their feet are pretty just stagnant. And then they're trying to react to that ball right as it's being hit. And I've heard tennis compared to boxing a lot. I'm even good friends with a boxer, and he says it's very similar. But I think the learning curve to develop boxing instincts is a lot higher in boxing because of the survival instinct of getting hit, right? You get instant feedback if you're really reading the room well. And in tennis, you just get your feelings hurt. Like, oh, I can't believe I blew another volley. And so I think one of the most obvious players to watch as far as who had great boxer instincts would be Roger Federer. And so let me explain and think about, as I'm explaining this, think about Federer playing. Federer was so good at seeing a forehand come in, let's just say the forehand, and then as he's hitting it, he knows exactly what he wants to do with the ball. And if the ball is feeling good off his racket and he can tell it's going to go to where he wants it to go, then he has a pretty good idea of how much pain he's inflicting on his opponent. How good was this setup punch? And then, boom, he's on the net before you know it, and he's hitting the knockout volley. He's not waiting to see where his ball lands. He's not waiting to see, the position. It's like all that story is going to be told after the ball goes off his racket. And I would say that this plan is even coming from Federer before he hits the ball. He sees the ball, and he's like, I want to do this with the ball. And then as he's hitting it, so that's the more you can do that and then react to it, you're going to be able to flow much better between the neutral position, the defensive position, and taking the offensive position. The opposite of that would be, oh, I want to do this with the ball. Wow, that doesn't feel very good. Rather than just stand there and then have somebody club it at you and hit it at your feet, the good players are then going to back up 2 or 3 feet. Especially today, in that the game is pretty much, people play very much the same way, and they're able to go from offense to defense and neutral so much maybe faster than ever before. Watch how much pros go from like being 2 or 3 feet behind the baseline to like 8 feet behind the baseline to then all of a sudden right inside the baseline. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about boxer instincts. And what you want to do, and the pros all do this, guys, I'm telling you, and this is your broccoli. I know I'm giving you all your broccoli.
Broccoli, I like it.
But you got to start imagining this stuff and work on it footwork wise, like put a point together in your head and then, serve a ball in and then go, okay, the person's going to hit back a great return. So I'm going to scoop it off my feet. Then I'm going to move back 2 or 3 steps. And then I'm going to hit a high loopy ball. Then, this one's got extra topspin in. So now I can go back and get my neutral position. And then you see them struggling up here in your head. Oh, well, I'm probably going to get a short ball, maybe cheat in a step. Oh, here comes short. Now I'm going to hit it and go to the net, put a volley away. Play points like that without a ball. And the more you learn how to feel that flow of your body, you'll be much better. And I'm telling you, when I do this, when I make you all do this in the camp, people, it's like you're in a test and everybody's looking at each other like, do you guys know the answer? I don't know. Like you all don't look comfortable when you do this. So I know you don't practice it. And if you did, you'd start to play more in a flow where the decision-making becomes more automated. That's it.
Oh, you left it so perfect. And again, this is very similar, maybe a different perspective. A lot of my personal clients, we've shifted to, a lot of them come to me and they go, hey, I want to work on this particular technique. And we're shifting everything towards strategy first, and strategy influences what stroke you're going to want to work on. And so what Pete's saying is really, really, I think, valuable. The way I look at it is this. If we look at every other sport, like a basketball, like a football, the team, it comes together in a huddle, and what do? They figure out the play. Basketball, they're figuring out the play. If you really look at, it's interesting, I'm sure Pete has the same experience. I can look when someone sends me a match, and within the first couple points, I'm like, okay, I know what you're either going to do because you're developing points and the patterns are right, or you're like, this is really random. Why would you hit that on the run? Because that's going to get you in more trouble. And same thing with doubles. It's like you see a shot and you're like, oh, yeah, you're in trouble, or, oh, that's a good shot. It's because in our minds, we've seen so much tennis. You realize that most of tennis is just patterned. It's so patterned. And it's not like, I think everybody has this idea of like, oh, they're coming up with this like magic thing. It's a pattern. And a client said this really well. And I think it was actually referencing Ian Westerman, who came out with the video. He was talking about, you learn the patterns first, and then you can improvise off of them. And
Mm.
so I think most players don't know the basic patterns for singles or doubles. And so it's very hard to do what Pete's talking about because your brain's so consumed with like, okay, I hit the shot. What are they going to do next? Instead of going, if I hit this shot, like if I hit a cross court to Pete and I hit it deep with good placement, good spin and height, I limit how many things he can do based on my shot quality. So it means my brain doesn't have to worry about him going down the line because if he does go down the line and he makes it, it's probably super lucky. Unless he's like, I mean, just having a great day to do that consistently. And so if I know that pattern, I can expect certain things to come back and move accordingly. And I think that's what kind of Pete's talking about, where it's like, for me, if you start focusing on start building your game around a couple patterns, whether it be singles or doubles. If you start building your game around those patterns and understand how to use them and do that so much that it becomes rote, frees your mind up to start looking up and going, oh, he's in trouble. I can maybe move forward a little bit more. Oh, I could do this. And what it also does is it teaches you to understand how to use patterns against different players because just like a team, they have different patterns they use. And so they have different patterns for different situations. But guess what? Tennis is the same way. I'm going to serve out wide. You're going to be out wide. You're going to probably put the ball in the middle. I'm going to run out and hit my forehand inside out. And I'm just going to punish you on that backhand side until you cough up a short ball. And I'll pick whatever weakness I want to keep attacking. In doubles, I'm going to serve probably down the tee. I like serving and volleying. I'm going to make my partner aware that you can poach on that. We might poach or whatever, or I might come in. But again, we've talked about these plays. And so it frees up our mind to then improvise if we need to. And I think that's super important to build your game around the strategies first. And then you can come back around and go, look, I like this play. But when I do this, this is a little weaker. So guess what? You know now what to practice, which is I'm kind of bleeding over into something else. But you know what to practice and make it very specific to you. And it's not this general thing you're doing. And I think that's so important if you want to improve in 2026. You have to stop being so random with your strategies, with your practice, and they need to have purpose. Everything
Mhm.
needs to have purpose. And I think people don't realize how purposeful pros are when they play. When we watch this magic that we're so lucky in this age to watch, there's such a defined purpose. Even when it was so interesting to wrap this up, Sinner talked about a couple months ago when he lost, he's like, I'm too predictable.
I
My
remember that.
patterns are too predictable. So it's like he realized his patterns were predictable. And he's like, I need to add in stuff like a drop shot. And so he starts working on a drop shot, which is, guess what? It's just a pattern. He's just switching up some of his patterns. And then bingo. I saw the next match, he's drop shotting Alcaraz, and Alcaraz is like, hold up, that's my pattern. What are you
Right.
doing?
That's my.
He's like, no, I'm going to use it. But now
Yeah.
he made Alcaraz have to worry about something else, a different pattern. I was like, oh, shoot. And they're going
hmm
back and forth. And what was it? Carlos, when Carlos was like, I can't talk about what we've been looking at with Sinner because then he know what patterns we know we're gonna expect. And
Yes.
so you got to think that these guys, and we can do the same thing, are analyzing their patterns. They are doing every little thing with a purpose, and there's no randomness left to play.
That's great stuff. That is great stuff. Yeah, that was very interesting. They had this epic match at the French, and everybody's like, "This might be the best match ever." And then it was just kind of like a foregone conclusion. Okay, next two Grand Slams, they're definitely gonna be meeting each other. And that Sinner came back, and Alcaraz was just like stumped. He was looking at his box like, I don't even know what to do out here. He's completely
Yeah.
outclassing me. And then they went back to the drawing board and flipped it around. And then the year-end tournament, Sinner flips it around. So
Yeah.
they're totally studying each other very closely. It kind of reminds me, this is definitely telling my age, but I think a lot of people will remember Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Magic would always say, I would look at as soon as my game was over, I'd look and see what Larry was going to do the next night, and we'd try and top each other. So pretty interesting. Okay, my next one, if you're a righty or a lefty, this is a serve goal. If you are looking to improve your serve, if you want to have more of a professional style serve, right? If you don't want to take on that task and you are maybe below a 4.0, I am 100% fine. I need to say this, I don't know, 10,000 times as far as on my videos. I'm fine with you hitting the frying pan grip in and getting the point done. There are so many people who have a national bag tag title who do that. So I don't want any coach to say that's not a real serve. It's a real serve if you have a national title and you're playing league tennis. However, the serve is definitely limiting, right? You're not going to probably have a national bag tag at 4-0 or 4-5 with that serve. It's just not going to happen. So if you're somebody who's like, yeah, I want like one of those professional looking serves. On 2026, only worry about a slice serve. Only worried about a slice serve. Now, unless there's some 15-year-old 10 or 11 UTR watching this, I'm going to put a lot of money on that most of you are over 40 and you might have a little ding or two in your knees, in your back or whatever. And that if you can even do a kick serve by definition, right? Let's say you're taking a test and Kevin and I have to mark off if that was a kick serve. Even if you can do that, I'm telling you, most of you have what I call pinata serve. I mean, it just sits up and you can crush it. Yeah, it's a kick serve, but this sits up there. Where I'm able to slice serve for the following reasons. Number one, it doesn't take much physicality. If you guys watch my videos, you know, I'm not really warmed up. You don't really see me jump on many of my serves when I'm instructing, but yet I can hit a slice serve all over the box at a fairly good pace with zero warm up. I have a decent kick serve, but I would have needed to come warm up, hit a lot of balls, and then demonstrate my kick serve because it takes a lot more physicality for it to be impressive. Where a slice serve, even if you don't jump on your serve, if you have good arm mechanics and really know how to feel and carve that ball, you can make it like a snowflake. It can basically scatter all over the box. It has a lot of speed gears to where you can hit a slicer that's fairly flat and fast, right? You just got a little bit of that shaving on there to make it a little more safe than a pure flat serve. And then you can hit that one that goes right in the side fence that maybe isn't as fast, but is super carved up and curvy. So that's going to give you the most variety you could possibly have on your serve. It's going to give you the most confidence you're going to have in a second serve. And it's going to be the least physically challenging to do. If you're trying to learn a new serve and you're so focused on, like, I see all these videos on, like, make sure you pronate. I don't know any 3-5 player who gets that and like takes off to the, you know, you're not going to be doing that like Sampras. I'm sorry. Just not happening. But if you just learn how to carve the ball and not worry about pronation, you will be able to have enough pace and movement on the ball to where you can move it all over the box. And people will go, wow, that serve is really tricky to deal with the whole match. And your second serve can be really super consistent. That's it.
I like it. I like it. I'm going to add on to that and put, go to my, I guess we're at my fourth one.
Yeah.
We have something that I use with a lot of my students, and we have our private serve and our public serve. And so before we ever work on a serve, I always make sure the student can pancake. For me, and maybe this might rub coaches wrong, I don't think, kind of what Pete's saying, if you pancake it in, it's a serve. If you hit the ball with the strings and it goes in the box, it's a serve. Now, is it the most efficient serve? There's tons of ways to make it more efficient. And so when I'm working with a student, we have our private thing and our public thing. We make sure publicly we can get the serve in because that just takes pressure off. And then privately, we can work towards whatever serve you want.
I think
that's, and then that way, like I had a student, she was like, hey, we've been working with her forehand and we're working with her serve now. And she knows it's her private serve. But she had a private forehand and she went out the other day. She's like, I don't know what happened. I just started hitting the forehand we started working on. And so her private forehand became public because she was like, we've been working on it and this is how, I just don't know any other way and it feels good now. I was like, awesome. And that's when you choose, because I think a lot of people are like, when should I choose to do this thing? Because I think the other thing is we feel like we work on something new and we got to take it out and use it and we just get obliterated and you're like, oh, this sucks. And so that's something I think also can help people understand that when we're working and building new things as we're growing, because to be honest, whenever you're working on something new or you're trying to like improve it, it's going to probably suck for a little bit because it's new. And don't bring that thing to a competitive environment because you're going to get your feelings hurt. And you're just, especially if you're playing doubles, it's kind of like, I don't want to play with you anymore. And
Yeah.
so how this leads into mine is like leveraging personalized drills and feedback. And so, like I talked about last, and what Pete talked about is like pick drills that are for your game and not just tons of general drills out there. But it's like you should pick something that this is going to be either work towards your singles match or your doubles. So like what Pete's saying is working with your serve. I would say, okay, and then work on the next ball after it. So when I assign drills, it's like, okay, let's work on the serve and the next ball, what you're going to do with it. Let's work on the forehand if you're going to approach and a volley, and try to incorporate it into something. And then use feedback. You know, when we do drills like that, I think another thing is when we create drills for ourselves, a lot of times we create fun drills, or we don't create accountability with our drills. So we are like, I'm working on my forehand. And, you know, in the beginning stages when you're trying to learn the technique, it's okay to miss and do stuff like that. But once you feel like you got a decent handle on the technique, you now need to, I think, flip the script and go into, I need to work on execution mode, which means there has to be some sense of accountability and a little bit of maybe even punishment if you don't execute. Because our mind goes, and we hear this like, oh, I'm going to work on this new thing with my forehand or my serve. Oh, I just hit it hard in the practice, and it was so good on the ball machine. And then you go into a real life thing, and you're like, your brain kind of fries because like accountability of that stroke actually go in.
Yeah.
And you're like, but it was great on the ball machine. We rallied with my coach who's feeding me perfect balls, and it was so awesome. Why is it not showing up? Because your coach, when you miss him, was like, hey, no problem, let's feed another one. There was no accountability. And when you add that sense of accountability to your drills, you realize it's different because you're like, whoa, if I miss this, something's going to happen. And so I kind of make this, I said this the other day in a lesson with one of my students who was like, well, we were working on going cross court and when to go down the line. I was like, let's make a bet. You can go down the line if you go down the line and you make it, I'll give you $10. But if you miss it, you give me $20. And you're like, oh, okay. And so really put some guardrails around. He was like, well, I don't want to give you $20. So I really better make sure this is the right ball to go down the line. And so that accountability changed his mindset because he was just randomly going down the line. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so when we make sure we have these personalized drills to us, and then we add in that accountability when it's the right time. It may not be the right time if you're learning something very new. Then you have to give yourself room to do enough reps so that becomes a new habit. And then once that you get that cross that point where I'm kind of getting it now, then we need to go into that next mode of adding accountability so you can take that from playtime to real time.
Yeah, that's great. I like to call those, I'm totally with you 100%. I like to call it Dr. Feel Good practices and Dr. Feel Bad practices. And I think both are important. You know, it is important, especially if something's new, that nice cuddly environment to make sure everything's safe, the nice hand feeds, the you're getting it moments and getting comfortable with no consequences. You know, if you don't have that, you don't have that safety net to try something new, and you have to get that feeling down in a very comfortable environment before you actually know what it feels like. You know, you're not going to get a nice topspin forehand. You've never hit one before trying to return Carlos Alcaraz's 90-mile-an-hour forehand. But at the same time, if you just do that and you go play those matches, and that's when you just feel naked out there. Like, what? Like you feel betrayed. Like my coach said I had it. I don't have it. And then you just feel like, like you don't get it and you'll never get it. But you're missing that step of testing how good it's getting. And in the beginning, when you test it, it's probably going to fall apart really quick. But the more you do that with your coach, or if you coach yourself, you'll start to execute under pressure. And then that match is going to feel more like your practice. So that was incredible, Kevin. That was really good. Okay.
Team effort.
My last tip is to keep track. And I have been saying this for over a year now. Whenever I meet people and we coach them live, I point out from basically, let's say you're returning a weak second serve. Imagine where you'd stand, basically where the pickleball lines are taking up all your courts, right? That line, or the 10 under line, that line, and a couple feet inside the service box. That area of the court, I want you to start to keep track of it in your match. And after the match is over, really think about, were you the best at it, number one on the court? Were you the second best? Were you the third best? Were you the fourth best? And your goal is, when you play these matches, the more you can write down that I am the best in that area, you are probably going to get bumped up within a year, because there's so much action in that area of the court in doubles. And lots of times that stuff is skipped in the lessons. Let's take a look at your forehand. Now let's look at your backhand. Now let's take a look at your serve. Come up to the net, right on top of the net, and we'll give you some nice volleys, like where the heat of the battle is figuring out how can you be good at taking a second serve or an approach shot, getting to the net, having a good proper form with a continental grip, handling that first tough volley, and then be able to end the point. If you can do that consistently in your league matches, I mean, you are going to be so tough out there. And so that's what I leave you with, is either whether it's a doc on your phone that you keep, or if you'd like to have like a little journal, I want you to write down after every match where you were. And then if you're like, well, I'm the things holding you back, the most obvious thing would be some of you like, well, that first volley, I am in the wrong grip. Once I get to the net, I can still put the ball away like this, but going down below my waist, that's hard to figure out a way to hit that ball in effectively. So, then you got to start analyzing grips, your technique. Are you trying to hit a deep volley to the net person to get in a little closer, and they end up going to the net person instead of the baseliner, and you and your partner get the ball put away on you? Really analyze why you're not the best, and then you start to make those little changes, and you're going to be a way, way better player by the end of 2026.
Cool. My last one is incorporating mental toughness routines. I think one of, probably for everybody, myself included, so I've been doing a lot of research on how the mind basically controls our strokes. I mean, if you really think about tennis or any other sport, it's our neurons in our mind that fire that controls our strokes. And those neurons, if you've heard the phrase, I forgot the phrase now. What is fired together, wired together? It's close to that. But basically, the more we do something, it creates a habit. But ironically, when we think too much, it interrupts those pathways. And so it's like when we start over analyzing our technique in a match and trying to do this, it's like literally the ball goes past and you're like, well, I was trying to get 45 degrees from here. And,
Yep.
And hold up, that ball went too fast. And so part of mental rehearsal, and I heard this, I think it was brilliant from Michael Phelps. I think his coach has a book, but he talked about that literally his coach would have him imagine how he would want to run the race. And so he's training his mind how, like, if I get an approach shot, I'm going to hit this. So obviously in the tennis match, you can't imagine every point, but it's like working on like, hey, I've been working on certain patterns. Like I hit a cross court and I run around, hit inside out, then I move forward and hit a volley. And so all those things he would rehearse in his mind in the pool. But he would also rehearse, like, if things didn't go his way. And it was really interesting because he talked about one time he was swimming and the goggles came off. And his brain didn't even miss a beat because he's like, yeah, I already trained that. I already had that rehearsed in my mind. I know the exact count of how many strokes it is to get here. And he did half the swim, couldn't see. And so what I think a lot of times is we need both positive rehearsal and negative rehearsal. We need to rehearse in our minds, take some time. It doesn't have to be like this kumbaya, you sit down and a pillow. I got one in the back, but I love it. But just sitting there and going, you know what? If I was going to play this point the way my pattern is, the way I've been practicing, how should it look? How should it feel? What should I do? Okay, if I play this point and let's say it was awful, how am I going to recover the next match? What am I going to say to myself? How am I going to feel? How's my body language going to be? Because I think so much we work on stroke, strategy, and all stuff, but guess what's going to interrupt and screw everything up? If your mind is in the wrong place, you have no access to your technique. It literally takes it away. It disrupts the neural pathways. It's not like, oh, I'm just telling you that. It's actually science that it disrupts your neural pathways. If you're upset, you can't think about strategy. You're not even in the match. And so rehearsing how you're going to deal with bad things and how you're going to deal with good things beforehand. So what happens by rehearsing is your brain goes, I know where to go. I know what path I need to take from here because you've told me that this is how we should react. Most people have no rehearsal on either one of those things. So it's just like your brain fries and goes, I don't know how to handle this situation because we never done it before. Um, I remember I used to run a lot of tournaments at my club. And so like 300 people. And I remember one time it rained really bad. It was awful. It was one of my first big tournaments where it rained and people were cussing me out and taking me to the corner. And I'm like, we'll get it done. And I felt like awful. My brain did not know how to handle that much stress. But after the tournament, I was like, okay, I'm alive. I survived it. And then the next year, I think it was like ice and different things. And I was like, oh, I know how to deal with this because I went through the tough part beforehand. But if I rehearsed how to deal with that first tournament the right way, I would have had a leg up and not have to go through the turmoil of it and not know what to do. So I think it's really important to understand that the mind controls everything. And if we're not training that, we could do all the great stuff with the strategy, with the goal setting, with like the technique and everything. But if you don't have your mind together, it doesn't matter.
Oh, good. And I love that you went into the rehearse in your mind if it's not good, because you're right. That's what I think really hurts so many tennis players. And I can say just my own experience is people love tennis so much. So I'm really just going to talk about myself, and I know that everybody feels like this. You love tennis so much, right? And so if you've got a big match or a big tournament coming up, you start daydreaming about how the tournament is going to be and how you're going to play. And you do tend to visualize this stuff even without being told to lots of times, because you're just excited through a certain way. And then all of a sudden, like there's one, I forget who said it, but it's like everybody's got a plan until they got punched in the mouth. Some boxer
Mike
said that.
Tyson.
Yeah. So, and that's what happens is you go out there, and whether your opponent's punching you or whether most of the time you're punching yourself, you're like, why am I hitting myself? That shot was so easy. And then you start not trusting yourself, and then all hell breaks loose in your game. And so to really plan that, visualize that, like, I'm going to hit this great shot. Oh, that was actually terrible. Like, how do you do? How do you deal with that? And I think if we did that a lot more, rather than just dreaming that we're going to go out there and always play in the zone every time we play a match, which is what we want to do, that would just be very powerful. I mean, absolutely great. I just thought that was such a good way to end this. So that was amazing, Kevin. Great list.
God, hey, we just bounced off each other. But yeah, I think it's if you sit down and you either rewatch this video and you just basic stuff. Someone said champions do something. No, what is it? Kind of recreational amateurs do stuff until they get it right. Champions do it until they can't get it wrong. And the difference between champions and amateurs isn't the fancy stuff, is that they do the basics over and over again. I watched this interview and they're talking about Kobe Bryant. And they're like, they watch Kobe Bryant work out and they're like, he's just doing basic stuff. Why, like, when's he gonna do the cool stuff? And so the guy goes up to Kobe and goes like, dude, you've been out here for an hour and a half just doing like basic footwork drills. And Kobe smiles, is like, that's why I'm the best. And so I think a lot of we're so drawn to the fancy stuff when it's just like, it's the basic simple stuff done over and over until you can only do that. It's not the fancy like all these ideas are very simple. It's just applying them and doing them consistently.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, best of luck in 2026. I know for myself, what I have going on is I'm going to be doing a lot of camps with you guys. I don't know if you've been seeing my emails. I've got a put me under the tree special that you can reserve for $100. So you can basically still have a great budget to treat your family to some cool gifts. And then we'll handle all the rest of the details in the new year. What do you have going on there, Kevin?
We just started something called the match winning method, which is strategy first, kind of going through this. And basically what that is helping players understand what's their keystone stroke, what strategies are built for them, and start this idea of starting to have a plan whenever you walk onto the court. And so we just launched this Black Friday. I've been doing a lot over the last year with private clients and kind of bringing the knowledge and the drills and the ideas from the private clients into a program. And so I'm super excited because I just see a lot of different change with very simple things without having the idea of like you need to rebuild your entire game. Just implementing simple patterns that make a huge difference. And so I'm super excited about that. That's going to be my pretty much my number one focus for 2026 is making that absolutely amazing. And if you want to check out, we're also started a community called the Training Ground at Total Tennis Domination. I haven't put anything on the site yet because we've been funneling a lot of people that have been on my list. And so if you're on my list, you've probably seen something, but there will be something on the site that if you want to join that, we do a lot of like, I do a lot of strategy breakdowns, technical breakdowns, and it's just a cool place for everybody to get together and get better. And so I'm super excited about that for 2026.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, my friend. Great job. It was so fun hanging out with you for this
Yeah,
hour, and I wish you the best of everything next year.
you too. Hey, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Thanks for taking the time and keep improving in 2026.
All right, guys. Happy holidays.
Take care.